Good evening.
I just got first benchmarks on Apple's M3 lineup of chips, the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max, that they announced just a few days ago. And let me tell you, I'm way more impressed than I thought I would be. The results are absolutely insane. Can it beat even the Apple Silicon Ultra chip? Let's find out. You know, I don't like benchmarks at all. I value real life tests. But leaked benchmarks is all what we have at this moment. Let's start with the M3 chip. That's the cheapest entry-level chip, which you can get in the $1,600 14-inch MacBook Pro M3, which replaces the last generation 13-inch MacBook Pro. In Geekbench 6 single-core score, it has 3,198 points. To put it into perspective, that's almost 24% faster than the M2 chip, and that's really very high, impressive result. What changed is now we have the 3nm process, and also the clock speed increased significantly. The M2 chip was running at 3490 MHz, while the M3 is running at 4050 MHz. That's 16% higher clock speed. While the jump from the M1, which was running at 3.2 GHz, to M2 was just 9%, now we have almost 2 times generation leap between the M2 and M3. Of course, the question is what the thermals are going to be like, because higher frequency in the small laptop body design can be challenging. And also the 14-inch MacBook Pro M3 has now only single fan compared to previous generation 14-inch MacBook Pro. Now, in multi-core score, there is difference 25%, which is really impressive, because the actual core count didn't change. M2 and M3 still has 8 cores in total. But if you look closely to the M3 multicore number, it is in fact on par with the higher-end M2 Pro chip with 10 cores, which was $400 more expensive at the launch. And don't forget, the M2 Pro is much slower in the single-core speed. So the M3 is overall faster machine while being a lot cheaper. So from this perspective, the M3 performs very well. As far as the graphics performance, we have 46,157 points in Metal score for the M3 in the 14-inch MacBook Pro with 10-core GPU. And when I compare it to the M2 in the M2 Mac Mini with also 10 GPU cores, it's almost identical, just 1.4% more powerful. That's quite disappointing. Where the heck is the biggest advancement?
The biggest advancement comes with the GPU. The M3 family of chips introduces a next-generation GPU that takes the largest leap forward in graphics architecture ever for Apple Silicon.
And that's really weird because if you remember, Apple in the event said new graphics architecture
allows Pro apps to deliver up to 2.5 times faster rendering performance than the M1 family of chips,
and 1.5 times faster than the M2 family. Or that the M3 GPU is up to 20% faster than M2 and 65% faster than the M1. Apple also said the M3 chips has the new feature called dynamic caching, which would allocate GPU memory on the hardware level and not in the software, and dramatically increases the average utilization of the GPU, which significantly increases performance. Well, sorry, we don't see that yet in the leaked benchmarks. It is possible that the Geekbench 6 is simply not yet optimized for the M3, which, by the way, I don't think is the case, because by Apple's own words, the improvement is on the hardware level and not in software. We will see in future on some real-life tests. As far as the M3 Pro results, we have at this moment no numbers at all. At the Apple event, Apple claimed the M3 Pro is up to 20% faster than the M1 Pro, and no mention about the M2 Pro. Why Apple compares the M3 with M1 and not M2? The answer is simple. The problem is, the previous generation M2 Pro was already 20% faster than the M1 Pro 2, so those two have the same performance. It would look bad for Apple if they would present the M3 Pro as the same performance as M2 Pro, right? In the M3 Pro, Apple did get rid of 2 performance cores in favor of 2 efficiency cores. The M2 Pro was also 12-core CPU, but with 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency, while the M3 Pro has only 6 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. So in this case, the fancy 3nm upgrade is not enough to beat the M2 Pro. But interesting is, in the M3 Pro, the transistor count went down to 37 billion versus 40 billion transistors. So that's most probably why Apple did not send any M3 Pro review units to the selected chosen one testers. I didn't get one. But on the other hand, with the M3 Max, that's completely different story. Really, wait for it. When we look at the single core score of 3104, it is 13.5% more than on the M2 Max, which scored 2736 points. But in multi-core, the M3 Max scored 21,397, which is 47.6% more than on the M2 Max with 14,497. Did you catch it? That's almost insanely 50% more. But wait, there is something else insane here. Look closer. The M3 Max is even a bit faster than this year's M2 Ultra, which was released just few months ago. So this is really absolutely insane. As far as the GPU performance, the M3 Max GPU metal score is 156,278. That's 13.6% more than the M2 Max. But that's 1.3% more than M1 Ultra with 154,259 points. Thanks God it's 41% slower than the M2 Ultra. I would be really pissed off because I bought it recently. And now we can take a look at some real-world numbers, specifically in the Puget Bench and Adobe After Effects testing. M3 Max scored here 27% higher than M2 Max, and even 10% higher than M2 Ultra. What? Wow, that's absolutely insane when ordinary MacBook for $4,000 can beat $8,000 2023 M2 Ultra Mac Pro. And don't forget, all these M3 results were on MacBook Pros, so laptops. And we know those can be thermally limited. So I only wonder what performance we will get when Apple brings the M3 Max or M3 Ultra to Mac Studio and the Mac Pro lineup. That would be an avalanche. But how does the M3 lineup stacks up to the currently most powerful desktop CPUs overall in the PC world? The currently fastest AMD CPU in the Geekbench 6 database is the server/workstation grade 64-core EPYC 9554 with multi-core score of 20,172. The fastest desktop CPU in the database is the Intel i9 13900KS with 21,711 score. And the most powerful desktop CPU from AMD is currently the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X3D, which is able to achieve only 19,695 points. The recently released top-of-the-line Intel desktop chip, the Intel Core i9 14900K score is not in official database yet, but user score are there already. But we can't know how much they overclock their CPU, so the score will be somewhere between 21,800 and 23,300, which is again almost the same as the M3 Max. So, we have here most powerful desktop CPUs from Intel and AMD, which needs water cooling and sucking several hundreds watts from the wall socket, and on the other side we can get the same performance or even beat it by an M3 Max in MacBook laptop? Are you kidding me? Also, keep in mind, all those fancy Intel and AMD CPUs when running in PC notebook. In a moment you will unplug them from a wall power, then they can drop in performance often in half. Who of you expected that when just a few years ago Apple announced their in-house Apple Silicon chips? How many of you laughed at that, right? Good job Apple on the M3 Apple Silicon lineup. This is really mind-blowing. Overall, other than the M3 Pro, which was probably intentionally not given out to reviewers, I am really shocked by those results, and I can't wait to test them out in future. So make sure you click the subscribe button below and the bell so you don't miss out. And let me know down in the comment section below your opinion on the M3 Apple Silicon lineup, if you plan to upgrade or you will wait, and watch my other great videos over there here. And see you next time. Bye bye.